4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City. A fusion of politics, commentary, entertainment, and sports. Steve and his team bring you the latest news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Israel says Hamas will pay a heavy price, and Hamas says that Israel has unleashed the gates of hell. This is a war that is breaking out in Israel between Israel and Hamas. Hamas, part of a unity government that the United States supports. As last I looked at my watch, we're still supporting them, according to our State Department and our president. There are rockets being fired at Tel Aviv, at Jerusalem, sirens going off, people running into bomb shelters, and Israel intercepting many of those long-range rockets being fired from the Gaza Strip by Hamas at the State of Israel. Israel is under attack. And how is the media portraying Israel's response? They're counting up the number of people wounded in the Gaza Strip and the number of children wounded or among the dead in the Gaza Strip. That's what you're going to have. You're going to have a tote board, pardon me. They're going to call it tit for tat. They're going to call it disproportionate use of force. The fact of the matter is Israel as a sovereign nation is being bombed. What sovereign nation would not respond with a fury to protect their citizens and to wipe out those bombs and the potential for more of those bombs? Of course civilians are going to die. And they're going to die because Hamas has elected to start a war, and they place their bombers, they place their launchers in civilian territory. All right, Sharyl Attkisson is joining us, folks, and we have a lot to talk about, starting with the border. Let's watch.
The president has asked for some money. He certainly can move some monies around, and we can handle that at the end if we want to. Again, let's keep in mind, without due respect to the administration, they're one step behind. They should have seen this coming a long time ago. They should have seen this a long time ago because we saw those numbers increasing.
All right, folks, you're familiar with that. Congressman Cuellar, Democrat, taking the administration to task over the weekend. Joining us now to talk about a slew of issues is Sharyl Attkisson, Emmy Award-winning journalist and former CBS News correspondent. And Sharyl, welcome back. And folks could check her out at SharylAttkisson.com. Glad you're back.
Thank you for having me again.
Well, my pleasure. Let's start with the situation on the border. The horrific circumstances. I mean, we could talk about it from a number of angles, but I mean, let's talk about the children and what's going on here. And you know, a lot of them are coming with phone numbers in their pockets, expecting to be reunited or united with the so-called family members. The Homeland Security Director refused to say if they'll be deported or not. What do you think is the future for these children?
It's hard to say, and I really haven't dug into that aspect of it as much as doing some thinking on the front end of it about some unanswered questions, which there had been a piece published by Pew Research. They had obtained a Homeland Security document that showed these kids were primarily from 3 Central American countries and postulated that it's because of the abject poverty and violence in those nations that's driving the children here. My question is, and I think a lot of Americans have the same question, why all of a sudden? There are poorer countries. There are countries that have been violent for many years. Mexico is racked by drug violence but hasn't shown the same surge in underage children showing up at the border. There seems to be, I think we all can postulate, that there's an organized effort of some kind. I also think, from what little I know about the drug cartels in Mexico, they couldn't be safely moved through Mexico without the approval of or help of the drug cartels and the tacit approval, at least, from some in the government. So this suggests an organized effort, at least in those areas where the biggest surges are coming from, and to write it off to, well, this is because the economy is bad in those countries and there's violence there, I think misses the point as to what's really triggering this organized effort. And then I have a second set of questions. So if we accept in the United States, as we like to outstretch our arms and do, that there's a humanitarian reason for the children to be here, should we be favoring, places that are basically have a pipeline, possibly with the help of drug cartels, versus many children who are in similar situations in countries that don't have drug cartels helping move them through Mexico? So there's so many questions here that I think I'm sure some people are trying to address but haven't been answered.
Yeah, no, absolutely a great point, and very good questions, which all need to be addressed, and hopefully will. I was taken by your piece on the Red Cross. And, when people give money to charities, they kind of think that they're giving money to charities and their money is going to be spent, almost all of it, on the charity and helping the people that they specialize in helping. In the case of the Red Cross, they help a variety of people under a variety of circumstances. But ProPublica published an article, and it's called "Just How Badly Does the American Red Cross Want to Keep Secret How It Raised and Spent Over $300 million Related to Sandy." Now, there's been an effort to gain these records from the Red Cross, and they don't want anybody to see how they spent that money, do they?
They do not, according to ProPublica. They've hired a law firm with money that they're getting from somewhere to fight the release of these documents, which ProPublica says, some of which have apparently been turned over for a state investigation in New York into where this money's going. It's sort of an old story with the Red Cross. Not to say they don't do some wonderful things. They have many great volunteers and paid workers. Some of them have helped me in the past blow the whistle on bad practices happening, and it's almost like, the government and the bureaucracy, anything that gets that big and handles that much money, I think you're going to have some mischief. I don't understand why, after all the questions, every time there's a crisis that comes up in some sort of controversy, they don't have a method in place now that can show directly where everything goes and how it's being spent, because it's certainly possible with technology to show where every bottle of water goes. And I tried to follow them in the wake of the Haiti earthquake.
Right,
and
back in 2010, you did great reporting to try to hold them and other charities accountable, including the Clinton Foundation, correct?
Yes, I mean, it seems a simple question, how much aid has been spent, where did it go? And they will give a lot of generic statistics when you ask. We've given out 100,000 bottles of water, we've provided 40,000 blankets, but they can't tell you when and where they were shipped, what camps got them, how they were delivered. And that's not that everybody needs to know that, but when you're digging in as an investigation, they should be able to show me a spreadsheet that, to some satisfaction, and to their financiers and to their donors, should be able to produce something that shows with some specificity where the goods go. UPS could do it. If you ask UPS where every tiny little package goes, they have a barcode, sure. They can figure it out. I'm sure there's a way to know. Somebody marked the bottles when they got on a plane, and somebody was there to receive them, and they went to a certain camp. But this is sort of a typical story with charities, and there's very little oversight, relatively little oversight, in my opinion, for nonprofits in the federal government world and under the IRS tax system, which is why not necessarily the Red Cross, but many other nonprofits, I believe, have been co-opted for other purposes and misused, and they can kind of operate with impunity. So this is a whole ripe area of news coverage that I think you don't see a lot about, because it's not popular to go after a charity. People don't like that. And secondly, these charities have powerful people that sit on their boards, and they have powerful connections, and
powerful attorneys apparently too, right? Powerful attorneys.
Right. Yeah. And this started back after 9/11. I had whistleblowers on the inside, thank goodness for them, blowing the whistle on terrible misappropriations, fraud, and abuse of cash donations that came in, that just poured in after 9/11. And the Red Cross's own internal audits showed some really terrible problems. And they were very close-lipped about it. They dishonestly released, after I did the series, that we hadn't contacted them for comment, but I had an email thread that went on for weeks and weeks asking them for information and trying to get comment from them. So those of us who've tried to deal with the organization, I think it's changed some. I think it's tried to improve, but it was really a tough nut years ago, and it was interesting to have ProPublica hit a stone wall as well.
By the way, I could get almost 100 bottles of 16 ounces of water in ShopRite when they're on sale for about $9. So it really shouldn't cost $1 million to get 100,000 bottles of water. But anyway, let's move on, because you wrote a great piece on your website, again at SharylAttkisson.com, about something that has disappeared from the not only the headlines but off the radar screen completely, when our soldiers were charged with urinating on the bodies of the enemy, the Taliban soldiers, I believe, that they had killed. They were charged, and you wrote a story about the Marine Commandant who overstepped, apparently, and it's resulted in many of these charges being changed and or dropped, correct?
That's right. A lot of people don't know whatever became of that case. I think that's partly by design, because there are many who don't want people to know, It's proven to be a black eye for the Marine Corps because, according to the prosecutor in the case, he blew the whistle on his own Marine Corps commandant. This is Captain James Wyrick, a judge advocate, who says the commandant improperly interfered with the case to the extent that it couldn't properly be prosecuted. And the interference took several forms, allegedly, including that he told the first judicial authority in the case, the first general, here's how you have to handle it. You have to throw the book of these guys. You have to crush them. You have to expel them in the harshest form of felony courts-martial, where the judge had said that's not appropriate, or the judge authority had said that doesn't fit with case law.
He overcharged. He overcharged, in other words.
He allegedly was pushing to overcharge them.
Yeah.
And, you know, while I think a lot of people, including the prosecutor, does not condone what they did, you certainly can't step outside the law in the United States of America and direct how a case should go outside of due process and fair processes. So that's the allegation here. It's very serious, and it's very unusual for a sitting major to speak on camera in this interview that he did with us, which you can find on blueforcetracker.com. If you want to support independent journalism, it's a new website geared toward military, but anybody would be interested in a lot of the material. So go to my website.
Blueforcetracker.com, yeah, okay.
Right. SharylAttkisson.com will lead it there, or blueforcetracker.com.
Very quickly. So this was done. Do you believe this was done for under pressure from who? The White House, Congress, who?
I can only tell you that as the general spoke of it during the time of controversy, he spoke to other officers and senior enlisted, saying that there was tremendous pressure from Congress, that it looked like the Marines were not taking care of their own business on several fronts in regards to crimes and mischief.
And we got 10 seconds. What happened to the people who were charged? Were any of them let off? Any of them?
Most of them, I think all of them now are out of the military, and you can look at the website for disposition.
Sharyl Attkisson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Malzberg panel's next, folks.